Hi, it's Morgan with 1455. It is our mission to advance the art and craft of the written word and to build a dynamic and innovative creative community. We offer a variety of free online and in person programs, which are fully supported by our sponsors and by viewers like you. If you would like to make a donation of any amount, please visit 1455litarts.org and click support. Your contribution will be greatly appreciated. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey everybody, it's Sean Murphy with 1455. Welcome back to our 1455 interview series. I hope you're enjoying it. I could not be enjoying this more every week, sometimes more than once a week. I talk to another writer and we figure out what makes them tick and get behind the carefully cultivated personas that we writers pretend to have on our social media platforms.
Yeah.
It is with genuine and extraordinary pleasure that I welcome our next guest, Hannah Grieco. I've talked so far with Ed Amar and Nathan Leslie. Hannah completes what I would call the holy trinity of local literary citizens when I've talked about kind of the Platonic ideal of a literary citizen being part of a community, doing their part to advance literature, lift others up, and make an inclusive community. Hannah is Exhibit A. She runs the Readings on the Pike series, which I'm sure you've heard of. If not, you should check out. I don't know how she manages to run a household, be a brilliant writer, and curate that series, but she does it with aplomb. I look forward to seeing her updates on Facebook and Twitter because she's just constantly exposing new and interesting writers into our world. So she's a wonderful literary citizen and a great person. Let me tell you about her, and then we'll bring her on. Hannah is a writer, editor, and advocate hailing from Arlington, Virginia. She has an MA in education, extensive classroom teaching experience, and loves to speak with large and small groups about education, disability, mental health, and all things writing. She writes essays and reported articles, as well as fiction, creative nonfiction, interviews, book reviews, food pieces, and definitely humor. And I've heard her humor, I've read her humor, and she's funny. Her work can be found in, among many outlets, The Washington Post, The Week, Al Jazeera, Parents Magazine, Huffington Post, The Rumpus, McSweeney's Internet Tendency, and a wide variety of literary journals and anthologies. Hannah, thank you for being here, my friend. It's great to see you, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I mean, what better birthday gift could I give you than invite you onto the 1455 hot seat and grill you about your deepest, most intimate literary secrets?
Well, to be honest, it means it's an hour when I'm not having to break up children's arguments and help with homework. So keep me here all day. It's all good.
Right on. Well, for starters, we will put you on the clock, 14 minutes and 55 seconds. Let's jump in. Hannah, what's the first book that made you want to be a writer and or a book that profoundly changed your life?
Well, this is a little trickier for me maybe than some writers because I didn't ever think I'd be a writer. And I always wanted to write and never trusted that I had anything to write about. So it was only a couple years ago that I started wanting to be a writer. But interestingly enough, I'm still impacted by a lot of, weirdly, Stephen King's work, and his novella, The Long Walk, I read as a kid and reread in college, and he wrote it in college. So it's not like we're talking about this master of craft and, like, and that lens and language did not really stand the test of time, of course. But I think it's a really good example of the kind of writer I want to be. He's a storyteller, and when he writes, he's not looking to attain a certain level. He's talking very conversationally and telling a story. And the more I write and the more I work on my craft, the more I want to write like that instead of what I've been, when you first start writing, you're trying to reach a level and you're trying to do things. And I would like to write more and more as a person who's just telling stories, both in my fiction and nonfiction. So I think that book, that novella, and also a lot of his work, like The Body is another one like that. It's just a dude talking. He's just telling stories, and so that's really inspiring to me, and actually the kind of writing I want to do.
Well, I appreciate that response, and you probably won't be surprised to hear that that's far from the first time King has been invoked as a significant and early influence for so many writers. I'll add my name to that happily and unashamedly, unreservedly, and I think Stephen King is just a pure storyteller in the best sense of the word. And if I was going to be cheeky about it, I would say with sincerity, when he tells a story, it stays told. I still remember, I vividly remember the novella you're talking about, which I think he wrote as Richard Bachman, because he was so prolific, he had to have a fake name. But all those stories I read, all the novels I read, in my teen years, I can still remember much of them. And then there's classics I've read that I enjoyed that I would be hard pressed to give you a scene or a characterization, but I remember all of those elements, and there's something magic going on there, I think.
Well, you can rip apart all aspects of anybody's writing, right? And I can look as a writer back at some of this work and say, I don't know about that, and I wouldn't have done that, except this is someone I've reread more than anyone else. I'm a big rereader. I rewatch shows I love and movies I love, and I reread books somewhat religiously when they are comforting to me. Yes. And I've reread some of his work so much that, I still have the same book from when I was 14, and it's just falling apart, crumbling to dust, as I read it. And I think that says something, where it's less about the craft and more about the story. And while I would obviously like to have both, I keep trying to pull myself back when I get too fancy, and I just want to tell that story,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so how about, and it could be the same person, but who would you name as one of, if not your most profound artistic influence?
Of course, for the reasons I already said, him. Someone I really long to, I guess, emulate on a level, if I could have a career similar to this person, would be David Sedaris. I love to write essays, but I'm kind of tired of writing sad, dark essays. I love to write humor, and there isn't a lot of opportunity to publish humor in terms of essays. Everything is always satire, which is not my strongest way of writing. I love to read it, and every once in a while I hit it, and I can do it, but not often. And what I really love to write are funny essays like he does. So it's hard. It's hard to imagine being able to be successful with a humorous collection if you're not already either a celebrity or very well known. But if I could achieve a dream, it would be to write those kind of observational, humorous essays. They're so deeply personal, and yet he's so good at looking outside himself and seeing every little detail, of watching every interaction and noting it and remembering it and then putting his spin on it. I love it. Again, that's someone I reread, and his craft is, in my opinion, like way up here. So he is another storyteller, but someone whose style I really, I find it very inspirational as a writer.
Well, I share your enthusiasm, and it occurs to me as you say that, I think if you took like a Martian and wanted to know like what's been going on in America the last 50 years, those two writers as tour guides could go a long way.
Yeah, they would definitely, at least for one perspective, for sure. I would think so. Like that, yeah.
So good answers. Okay, how about an album or movie or both that you recommend without reservation?
All right, I have each, and these are my notes I have here. I'm not used to bringing notes to an interview. I should probably learn how to do that more often. I always answer the same way to any movie question ever. No matter what the question is, the answer is The Fifth Element, always, because that is my movie, like from my soul. I really love them. Again, something I've rewatched a lot. If I'm looking for something that I think, someone earlier on Twitter was like, what movie do you think was written for writers? Like, what's a movie? And I said, oh, Fifth Element. I love it. I love so much about that movie. So that's mine, no matter what. I probably tweeted about it 3 or 4 times this week.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah, I love it. And then music is really important to me. I use it in all aspects of my life. But probably an album that I would, recommend no matter what would be Whole, Live Through This. I can listen to that all the way through. It really, really upsets my children. They hate it, which makes me love it even more. They do not like screaming girl bands, which is really like what I'm made of, is screaming girl bands. So they like a lot of pop and EDM and contemporary kid stuff, and I like screaming girls. So yeah, Whole.
Love it. Right on. So far, well, there's no wrong answers in this series, but some answers are more equal than others. So far, you're batting 1,000. Okay, this is a tough one, but I think we writers live for these kind of trivial, crucial questions. If you had to pick a best first or last line of any book ever, what would come to mind?
Okay, well, I thought this was my favorite question of all. And so I, of course, have very specific answers here. And it was a tie for me. And one will probably not be surprising, and one I don't think is surprising at all, but might be somebody who people haven't known as well. Both the first and last line of, and he's a friend of mine, so note, this is a good friend of mine who I deeply, deeply admire as a writer and a person. But Zach Powers has a book that came out about 1.5 years ago called First Cosmic Velocity. Really underrated book, and he's probably the author that I would say that you were going to ask about in terms of underrated. He's a brilliant writer. His ability to find details and tease out side stories, I've never seen anything like it. But the first line of First Cosmic Velocity is, Nadia had been the twin that was supposed to die, which is amazing. And then the last line is, at first like falling, and then you float. And I just think they're both so good, and they show you how amazing that book is. It's stunning if you haven't read it. And then tied, in first place with that is just a few months ago I finished Luster, which I hadn't read, and everyone was raving about, and it's so good. I mean, Raven Leilani is incredible. And the last line of Luster is also really good, and that is, and when I am alone with myself, this is what I am waiting for someone to do to me, with merciless, deliberate hands, to put me down onto the canvas so that when I'm gone, there will be a record, proof that I was here. And I just love that too. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, good stuff.
Good, and I, again, always appreciate that there's so many classics that can and should be invoked, but I love when we hear lines and authors for the first time, because that's an opportunity for discovery. Feel free to say more about Zach, or is there another underrated author that you'd love to give a shout out?
He's the one who's most recently, his book, First Cosmic Velocity, I read it, and it's not an easy, fast read. Some books just are boom, you're done. This book, I had to think about it. I would stop and I would Wikipedia stuff and I would Google search, because he takes, you think it's going to be almost like a science fiction, but it's not. It's almost historical fiction, but it's also totally speculative. So he's gone back in time to this the space race with Russia, and has completely reimagined their role in the space race. And he has literally made the whole thing up with real people making appearances. But he told it so perfectly with such exact details that I thought things were true that were not true. I mean, the research that this dude did is so stunning to me. And he's the opposite type of writer. I am this messy writer, and I just, and he is so methodical. I can only imagine the 10 million notes he must have had posted or index cards, right? And he pulled it off perfectly. And I feel like this is a book that I expected to be hailed as a classic, like a modern classic, and that people now don't always have the bandwidth or ability or desire to read books that take that kind of concentration, that kind of effort. But if you put that kind of concentration effort into your reading, what you come out with is so amazing and powerful and comprehensive. I mean, he thought of everything. And I just expected everyone to recognize that. And everything he's written is like that. His short stories are stunning. He has a collection that's equally amazing. And so I think you'll see him putting out amazing book after amazing book, and I'm hoping that people start to really see it, because I don't think there's a better writer out there. I really don't.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And I hope that does prompt some people watching this to go check that out. Okay, needle off the record, right in the middle of the interview, the question I have to ask everyone. Why have you not read Moby Dick? Or if you have, is there a classic you've been meaning to get around to reading?
I have read Moby Dick. I read it in high school. I did not enjoy it. I think it's really wordy. And I've gotten worse about that as I've become a writer, because I am a flash fiction and flash nonfiction writer. So I'm like, cut this, down to the moment. And that guy is like big, big, big. And I don't love that. And that's probably why I also haven't read any Dostoevsky. Also big, 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 giant, right? And I feel like I probably should have read Dostoevsky, but if I can read Lester, like I'm just not gonna read Dostoevsky. So I'm not a classics girl, even though I read a bunch through school, and there are some that have stayed with me. I consider East of Eden to be a classic that will always hold a special place in my heart, that kind of stuff. But these older books, I've read Emma in college and it was all right. I didn't love Pride and Prejudice. I am not that kind of reader. I have executive function issues, and I really need to be super into and connected with the people that I'm reading about. So, Billy Budd was a little easier than Moby Dick, I thought, to handle.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Now, fair enough, and I would agree that there's the analog era, which is not that far in the rear view, but then there's like the pre-electricity era, and those novels are not translating as well, in our hyper modern era, and it just is what it is. I would say for Dostoevsky, in the Brothers Karamazov, there's a classic chapter called "The Grand Inquisitor" that could function as a standalone. I would recommend.
I should read the whole book. I recognize the validity of that, and I should just do it. I'm being a bit of a wimp about it, because I'm like, I could just read short stories all day long on Twitter. So some of it is just me not putting in the work, right? I was just talking about that with Zach Power's book. Yeah. Why am I putting in the work for that and not for a classic? I don't know. Maybe
there's only so much time. You got to do what moves you, but read the book, and maybe that'll make you want to read more.
I will definitely at least look up that chapter, which maybe will make me want to read the whole thing. So
there you go. Fair enough. All right. Putting the focus back on you, if you could say, is there a single theme or topic that your work seeks to address?
Yeah, but I'm trying to get away from it. I can't stop writing about being a mother. It happened. I started writing because I was writing essays about parenting, and I was a freelance parenting essayist is what I was. And then I started writing, but even my food pieces came back to parenting, and then all my fiction was coming. There were different types of parents, different types of kid experiences, but this sort of theme of loss and isolation within that motherhood identity, mental health and disability always come through in my work because of my own stuff and the people I love very much who struggle. It's hard to get around it. So I have a piece coming out tomorrow in Passages North that is completely different, and I'm so excited about it. And it got accepted very quickly. I was like, see, I can write and place in a pub I really love and have long wanted to get a piece into. Mm-hmm. And it's not about being a mom, see, but it is still about loss and who identity. So I'm like, all right, I didn't really stray that far. It just happens to not be a mom at the center of it this time. But yeah, I want to write more and more about things besides just this parenting theme. And I think identity is something that's universal, and that ache for who am I and where have I come from and why does nothing make sense. I think that can still carry through even if it's not parenting work, so.
For sure. And listen, two things. First of all, congratulations on the publication. I can't wait to see it. And, frankly, I think that the desire, which is not necessary, some people circle a theme very successfully, but to me, the desire to want to write about different things and different perspectives is itself a victory, creatively, to even have that ambition. And I think you've proved.
I haven't been writing long, but I've been writing long enough to sort of feel like, okay, I keep tapping this well. And it's because I needed to for a long time.
Yeah.
I needed to get this stuff out. It was really hard stuff I was writing about. And then I was moving into fiction, so I had some freedom to explore what would have happened if this happened in real. So it's like a lot of real life, then what would have happened if this, and killed off my husband several times. And he's like, oh God, am I always gonna die? I'm like, maybe, I don't know, or we get divorced, and what would have happened if I'd had a daughter instead of a son in this situation? And so I could explore that, and that was sort of my gateway to fiction. And now more and more, I'm trying to just stretch, because writing should be fun, not just cathartic. And it also, like, how much sad stuff do people want to read, right? Maybe they just want to read really fun stuff. I mean, this thing tomorrow is super weird and pretty fun. I mean, really weird. So I love weird, and weird is just enjoyable to write instead of it being like you're just punching yourself in the stomach over and over. So
right. Okay, more weird, please. That's
that's my goal. Weird
motto for 2021.
Yes.
Well, so along those lines, I tend to, combine the next two questions, thinking about the notion of writer's routines and writer's block. What are your impressions or experiences with either or both?
I have no good writer routine. The only routine I have is that I have forced my children into recognizing that my writing is work, even as I've been pulling back from freelancing, because it's a little bit soul deadening. So I've been trying to really focus more on editing and teaching for income and creative literary type work for my writing. But I've forced them to recognize that this is work for me as well as something I love to do. So they have to give me some time. But I don't have a good routine, excuse me, and I can't force it. So I'm not the right person to talk about that, I think. If I don't feel like writing, I've stopped guilting myself about it. For the first couple of years, I was so much guilt and shame if I wasn't writing. And that made my writing forced. It read forced, and it required an enormous amount of revising and polishing to make it feel even a little bit normal. So I stopped. And I do believe in writer's block, because I don't journal. I don't brainstorm. I tell my clients to do it, and it works for them. Right. But when I do it, it doesn't work for me. So I often will recommend it because I see it working for the people that I'm editing and coaching. But for me, that stuff rarely leads to good stuff. It rarely leads to what I really want to write. Prompts do, though. So when I'm really stuck, I'll get a prompt. That has helped me some. But writer's block, sometimes I just let it happen. I just say, you know what? I don't have a fear that if I stop writing, I'll never start again. I've not gotten to that place, because when I don't write for too long, I get really itchy, and I start to be like, oh, God, what's even the point of any of this if I can't immediately write about it and make fun of the people around me? So that's one positive thing about being an essayist, is I have a lot of content just right in my face with my 3 very weird kids. And so and my weird husband and my weird parents, I can just and me, the weirdest of them all. So eventually I start taking notes just to myself, remember when this happened and this happened and this happened? And then I go, all right, well, I as well sit down and write it. So.
Well, as you no doubt will appreciate and not be surprised, variations of that answer have resonated throughout the series. There's very few people that I think espouse, one size does not fit all. And, there's just that fine line between writing when you feel inspired, but also not using too many excuses to not write. But it seems to me that you've cultivated that balance, which is very healthy. So good on you. How about a setback, artistic or otherwise, that in hindsight may have actually kind of put you on the trajectory you're on now?
To be honest, I don't really believe in setbacks, at least in terms of writing. I have lived through some pretty horrible personal experiences involving the people I love. And this is why I'm really glad I wasn't a writer in my 20s, because I would have just been very self-indulgent. I have this tendency towards a lot of drama and self-indulgence, which I still accidentally put in my work and then try to pull it back, especially now that I'm learning how to do that pull back method. But once you've been through just a few of the things that I'm not going to get into it now, but a few of the things that if you've read my work, you've read about in terms of my essays, very little with writing can be considered a big setback. So if I get rejections, I mean, it's painful. I get a lot of rejection. I think I get a lot more than most people because I really submit a lot and I pitch and I send my work all over the place often before it's ready. So I am used to getting a lot of no emails or ghosted crickets. And it hurts, but it's like, I just use it to learn how to make the pieces better and what's not landing. And there's just nothing. I mean, I've never written a book. So I've never written my heart out and spent that much of my, years of my life and have someone be like, this is crap. That would hurt. I imagine that'd be a big setback, but I haven't had that.
Right.
And most of the really negative stuff that I've experienced from my pieces have been hateful, horrific emails and messages that are so extreme that they're not setbacks because these aren't people talking about my craft. I mean, some of my earlier essays, for places like Huffington Post, Washington Post, these are places that have a really big readership.
Yes.
And that stuff goes over to Yahoo and goes all over the world. And when you get into the Huffington Post Yahoo section, and then they come and find you, people will tell you you should be killed. People will tell you you should have aborted your children.
Wow.
That they're going to come find you and rape you. I'm not kidding. This is the kind of
I know.
And I got so many emails like that my first year of writing. People saying things that they had dug up about me that were pretty scary. And then, knock on wood, nothing happened. I just blocked people, and editors were wonderful and turned off comments and stuff like that. But people have strong feelings about how important it is to be able to marginalize other people. That's very, very important to bigots.
Yes.
So, and they will do, or at least say that they'll do anything to do that to you and to the people you love. So, I guess if you think about what that even means, like what is a setback? I don't know. Like I haven't had anything that was a setback. I've had moments where I was like, I'm terrible at this.
Sure.
I'm the worst writer that's ever lived. Like, why am I even bothering? I mean, I have, no kidding, I've gotten, I think, 9 rejections this week. 9.
Just 9?
It's only Thursday. I'm talking from Sunday to now. I've gotten 9 rejections. That's a lot. And that's totally awful. But I submit a lot. So,
There you go. Yep.
What are you going to do?
No, in fact, yeah, the
rejections too. So I know from both sides what it's like,
Yep. The only way to, well, not the only way, one way to forestall the indignity of rejections is to keep submitting, so it just becomes less and less personal. And it really,
hundreds and hundreds a year, and I've earned it. Juju-wise, I am an editor at 2 different journals and an assistant editor at another one, and we send out rejections every day. I intentionally did not send out any rejections on my birthday in hopes that I would not get any, and it didn't work. I got a rejection today, so I was like, oh, come on. I thought that was supposed to balance out for one day. It did not.
Yeah.
So, hey. Oh, well.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's no superstition that I've found that works.
It doesn't work. Oh, well.
So along those lines, we were kind of getting at it in a very organic way. Could you define or explain what literary success means to you?
I'd love to. I write moments. I write flash. Everything I do, even the poetry that I've lately been writing, weird poetry, these little moments, these flash, tight prose that I work so hard to shape just right for a certain kind of impact. And I would love to write a book. I would love to be able to push through. I don't know if I can. Honestly, I don't know if I can write for 60,000 words. And so I've been thinking about, a novel with micro chapters, or an essay collection that leads into a memoir, or like auto fiction, like this, a dramatic fiction-y memoir via like essay-ish hybrid chapter. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a way to be true to the voice that I really have as a writer, that I'm not sure I can or should write an 80,000 word novel. I don't know that I have the attention span to do that. So, and there are a lot of novels, and I don't want to write a novel. I don't want to put all that time and heart into it and have it sit in a drawer. So, which I know is part of the process, and I just don't want to do it. So I'm a big baby. I am not a mature adult. So maybe I'll just keep doing this short stuff and lead to something bigger. I think that's probably my direction, is creating an overarching arc of a novel with like flash chapters. So I think might be the only way I can do it.
Well, first of all, thank you for the honesty there. Secondly, the world doesn't need more novels. The world can accommodate more good novels. But 3, you're establishing an identity, and a successful one at that, with your distinct style. So add me to the chorus of people saying, who gives a shit what you should be doing? Write what you want. And the books will, look at David Sedaris, for instance. Those are collections of shorter pieces. He hasn't written any novels I'm aware of.
And I would love that. So
yeah.
I should work on that instead. I think.
You write enough stuff and it has its own theme, and you have collections of stuff. I would also recommend, are you familiar with Beth Ann Fennelly? She wrote a book called Heating and Cooling, and she calls it microfictions. It's not flash. It's like essay-ish.
That sounds familiar. I should go and look. I'm wondering if I ordered it and haven't written it yet. I haven't read it yet.
She's done what you're talking about, because it is this kind of hybrid. It's not flash fiction, and they're not essays, but they're like 1 page, half page, 2 page.
I love
bursts
it.
of life, and actually that could be your spirit animal, because she's brilliant and funny, but also devastatingly moving. So
I've been reading more and more stuff that was quirky like that was really effective, and even my flash is getting shorter and shorter. I blame Kathy Fish and Smoke Long and all these amazing workshops I've been taking just to try to juice me up and try new things, and they've just been getting me shorter and shorter, and I've loved it. So I'm like, oh, just trying to go longer, not shorter, yo. And I know people who write thousands of words for one story and are like, how do you write short? And I'm like, I don't know. How do you write long? I can't do it. I don't know how you do it.
I think there's a beautiful mystery there, and I think that proves that certain writers do kind of find their style and their groove. It doesn't mean you can't expand or refine, but you clearly have a sweet spot.
Well, at least it's what I'm comfortable with. Sometimes I do think it's something I'm getting better at, but I also sometimes wonder if we don't push out from what's comfortable, and I don't want to do that, Like I've been taking a poetry workshop all week, and I've been writing the weirdest, most bizarre poetry, and I've loved it so much, and I'm like, wait a minute, am I a poet? What's happening? And I'm not, but what if I hadn't taken that? I wouldn't have written any of these 4 pieces I wrote this week, right? So yeah, you gotta push. But again, they're really short poems. So
right. Listen, this all ties together with the earlier observation that one should not be crass or cynical about their aspirations, but I think it's safe to say we are in an environment now that doesn't seem to be going away, where shorter is better in terms of the general attention span and bandwidth. So trending wise, you are going in the right direction. I don't think this is really the time for 800-word Dostoevsky disciples to be trying to break into publishing. So
it's hard. It's true. Unless you're into high fantasy, which is not my niche, but I think they're still reading long over there. But yeah, I do think you're right. Literary fiction that's really award-winning and doing amazing. A lot of that's pretty short lately. Really good. I mean, Luster was very short, and it was stunning. I read it in 2 days, and I felt like I didn't breathe. I just took a breath and read it, and then exhaled at the end, So and it's almost like every little bit is a flash itself too. So there are some really, really good writers doing that. And I think that's who I should sort of be reading and absorbing as I think about what I want to do in terms of longer manuscripts.
Yeah, right on. All right, how about, and again, I feel like these have all kind of segued into each other in a beautiful way. Is there something that you wish you had known as a writer 10 or even 20 years ago?
well, I wasn't a writer. So, and I can't even say I wish that I had trusted myself to write then, because I would have just written the worst, most self-indulgent stuff. The experiences I've had in the last 10 years have really shaped me and have made me the person who became a writer. So I know that sounds so corny, but it's really true. I I had no breaks. I had no restraint. I had no ability to rein it in for decades. I'm pretty old now, and it's like in my 40s I learned not moderation, because I'm still not a moderate person, but I learned how to mute a little bit, and
Yeah.
with that, to open up a little bit and look at different perspectives in a way that I was just too intensely emotional to do when I was younger. So I don't even know what I would have just written bad poetry about mean boyfriends and how I didn't know if I was gay or not. Like, really, that was all I would have written about for like 15 years, right? So now I can write about being a middle-aged bisexual woman and have the, like memories of this, and still have a relationship with my husband and my as a parent, and it can be so nuanced and interesting to me anyways. And like I don't think I would have had the grounding or in
Yeah.
my own identity to be able to explore those kind of themes, I mean, it's a very queer story coming out tomorrow, but I'm happily married to a man. That's like, ooh, what's that about? But I don't even have an issue with it now, where 10 years ago I would not have ever had the courage or even interest in exploring that aspect of my writing. So I
Sure.
don't know. I don't think there's anything I wish was different. I love the path I'm on. I think I've been really lucky. And I've had a lot of incredible writers mentor me and help me and edit me and support me and beta for me. And I just learn. So I feel incredibly lucky.
That's wonderful to hear. And
Yeah, it's pretty great. I've had a great time becoming a writer.
yeah, well, and for those that are watching this that are newer to the craft, take heart and take heed in what Hannah is saying here, which is you're getting this combination of persistence, faith, ability to self-edit, but also the ability to seek out mentors and editors. And we always circle back to this idea of community and why being part of a literary community is so crucial, because yes, writing is a solitary endeavor, but it's a group effort to find that voice and find an audience. I think Hannah, you're literally describing how this all works. So I'm grateful for you for that. I hope you saved the final. Do you have a 1 minute or so exhortation? Speaking of potential novice writers listening, a beginning writer looking for advice, what would you tell them?
Well, like I said, I've been writing about 2.5 years. Like, I should technically still be a beginning writer, but I am now editing and coaching and helping other writers. And the way that that happens is from the very beginning, you just don't have an ego about your writing. Or if you do, you pretend you don't and you listen as if you don't. Because of course we're all jealous and we're all humans and we all wish we were immediately brilliantly successful. So you go and you start reading all these different writers. You connect with them on social media, even if you're not someone who thinks you want to do Twitter. Literary Twitter is a thing that is really powerful as a form of community. I didn't think it was something that could be as powerful as it is, and even especially now with this pandemic, you find writers and you connect with them and you read their work and you ask them about their work and you ask them questions, and then you meet other writers and you ask them to read your work and they give you ideas. And I even paid some editors and got some really good helpful feedback early on. I saved my money to sometimes be able to do that. And some of them I agreed with and some of them I didn't agree with. And then I learned from that. And then I worked as a freelance writer and I did creative writing, and I just explored every outlet instead of staying in just one. I tried every possible genre that I had any interest in. And then I took classes. I saved money to take classes. And I just made it a really important part of my life to learn from other writers, because I really don't think that writing improves when you're alone and you're in a bubble. Unless I guess if you're just a genius and you were lucky. I wasn't a genius who was just born with that gift. So I would still be the same writer I was a few years ago when I first started, if I hadn't really sought out other people And I think that's the key, is to seek out other people. Even if you can't afford classes, there are free events, there are panels. Just reading other work makes your writing better. And then you share it, and then you meet other writers and you talk craft, or you talk about what you like and you see what other people like. So, and you listen to editors instead of arguing with them. You pick what matters to you. So I guess it's all about being really open and really being generous with your time and energy with other writers, because that always comes back to help your own writing.
What a beautiful note to end on. Folks, if you're checking out Hannah here for the first time, I'm certain that you'll understand why I always find her so refreshing and inspiring. Again, great literary citizen, does so much to lift up other writers. So obvious, the passion and dedication and integrity, with a very refreshing, unguarded, down-to-earth honesty. What a great person. Hannah, how do people find you online if they want to check you out?
My website is easy. It's hgrieco, Grieco, everyone spells it EI.com. But you can also find me on Twitter. I'm Writes Loud, just like it sounds. And I'm very responsive and on there way too often. So definitely follow me. I love to follow writers back or readers back. I'm on Facebook too, but I don't really do a whole lot with my writing on that. That's just more like boring old mom stuff with other moms. But I'm in a bunch of the binders. If you are a woman or non-binary writer, you can find me there as well. But Twitter is a good way to find me.
Fantastic. Well, Hannah, it's always a pleasure. I always adore talking to you. I look forward to further discussion at further events. Thank you for being part of our Lit Fest. I'll put the link to your panel in the comment section.
Okay,
I put this on our website so people can check you out. Go enjoy your birthday. I know you're taking a little staycation-y type thing. Go be productive and have fun, and don't worry about this wicked world for a couple days. And keep writing and being awesome. Appreciate you taking the time, and it's always great to see you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for asking all these cool questions. I appreciate it.
Right on. Well, I hope it was as good for you as it was for me.
It was great.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow us on our social media channels to stay up to date with what's new for 1455. And also, we would like to ask for your support. We depend on champions like you to keep us going. Visit 1455litarts.org and click support to make a contribution in any amount. We'll see you soon.